Keep it going for Jesse. Big round of applause for Jesse. Come on.
All right, so my parents split up when I was 4 years old, and I was raised by a single mother. And my mom was a lovely, beautiful, strong, independent woman. I think she did a pretty good job raising me, if I say so myself. Thank you. 2 years later, she meets a guy named Steve. And Steve was an intimidating guy. He was 6'2". He was muscular in a redneck kind of way. And I liked him at first because he kind of reminded me of a bald Harrison Ford with a mustache. And Indiana Jones was my hero as a kid. And Steve had two kids. One was Jeff and Jennifer. They were twins. And I was an only child, so when my mom and I started hanging out at Steve's house, it was exciting to finally have like a brother and sister. But this is when we discovered that Steve was a drunk, verbally abusive asshole. Yeah. He would get in fistfights with his son at the dinner table, and he was only 4 years older than me at the time. And it seemed like we were always calling the cops because that was the only way to break those two up. So despite the violence, my mom still was going to marry this guy. She sat me down and she asked, "What would you think if I married Steve?" And I looked her straight in the eye and I said, "I'd stab you in the heart with a knife." I hated this guy. So they get married and we move in. We move into the house and I have a new school district, I've got new friends, I got a new neighborhood, and I did everything I could to avoid Steve at all costs. In the summer, it was so easy because my childhood was like the Sandlot. I caused havoc with my friends in the neighborhood every night during the summer, but during the school year, it proved to be a lot more difficult because I would come home at 3:30 and I'd rush downstairs into the family room. Now in the Midwest, a family room is just another living room just in the basement. Steve worked second shift and he would come home at about 4. So he would come in and we wouldn't acknowledge each other because we did not like each other at all. And I would stay in my safe space in the basement because he couldn't, come yell at me or do anything to me. He would get beers and then get drunk up on the couch upstairs. The only time I would come out of my fortress of solitude was when my mom would come home 2 hours later and it was dinner time. But those nights that my mom worked late, I would just hang out down there and hope to God that he wouldn't interrupt me doing whatever I was doing. But I would get hungry, so I'd ninja up the stairs to get a snack. And I was a husky child at the time, so a snack for me was crushed up Oreos in a bowl that I would put milk over like it was cereal. And as I'm preparing my meal, Steve would hurl obscenities and insults at me, like, "Fuck you, you're a lazy piece of shit," and my favorite, "You fat slob." This scared the hell out of me, so I would sneak back downstairs, but I wouldn't tell my mom that he was saying this stuff to me because I was afraid if I tattled on him that he would come beat my face in. This went on for 4 years. One particular night, my mom and Steve were arguing upstairs, but I was downstairs watching my Bruce Lee and Kung Fu movies because I was a big fan, and I still am, and I had my phone, nunchucks, and I took a broom handle and split it in half like they were my fake katana blades, and I'm watching Enter the Dragon, kind of mimicking Bruce's moves, subconsciously maybe preparing myself to defend against Steve if he ever came after me. So they're arguing, and it's pretty bad. My mom locks herself in the bathroom, and Steve in his drunken stupor is not having it. He busts the door in, grabs my mom, and she screams, and I swear she says, "Jesse, come save me." I'm 10 years old. I panic. I feel powerless. I don't know what to do. If I go upstairs and try to bash Steve's face in, he's going to beat me up. So I just panic and think my mom's getting raped, she's getting abused, she's getting killed. Eventually things calmed down. She was okay. I found out years later as an adult she was actually saying, "Jesse, get out of the house," to save me. She calls my uncle. He picks me up. I spend the night at his house. Next day I go to school. I come home. I see Steve's car in the driveway. He never went to work. And I can hear him from outside the door, like in a drunken stupor, like throwing shit around, doing whatever drunk people do at 3:30 in the afternoon. Before I get a chance to open the door, he opens it, and there he is, all 6'2" of him. And I'm looking up at him. He looks down at me, and I can smell the beer on his breath. And he just says, "I hate you," and he slams the door in my face. No one's ever spoken to me like that ever in my life. I burst into tears, and I rushed to my other fortress of solitude, my friend EJ's house. My mom finally had enough and decided to divorce the guy, thank God. We move out, and on our first day of freedom, we go to dinner at McDonald's. And we're sitting there, and I finally asked my mom, "What took you so long? Why did you marry this guy?" And she gave really good reasons. She was a single mom. Finances were tough. She wanted to give me some type of semblance of a family. And then she said, do you remember what you told me when I asked you if it was okay to marry Steve? I said, yeah, I'd stab you in the heart with a knife. I totally remember saying that. And she said, I should have listened to that 6-year-old because your intuitions were obviously better than mine. Thank you.